All right, internet. All right, internet. Here we go. You gonna give us another day? You gonna mess around? You gonna be copacetic? Oh, it's looking good. But you know me, I wait until I see. I wait until I see. Uh yeah, things are looking yeah, things are looking pretty. They have given us another day. How about that? How about that? What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Once again, doing my time zone third. I like doing my time zone third. That's how I roll. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. I hope you are well. I hope you are staying safe. I hope all your dreams have come true. I've been negligent on the dream wishing lately, so I want to get back to it. I hope all your dreams have come true. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. ZT.com, our friends over at ZT.com. Their tea kind of rules. Seriously, their tea's awesome, and they supply the tea to this show. And you can get some of their tea over at ZT.com, ZHITEA.com. And you can get it wholesale during the pandemic. So show them some love. Their tea is great. They're friends of the show. They make the Vigilante, Graham Elwood's tea. So check them out, ZT.com, ZHITEA.com, triageoil.com. If you're looking for pain oil that is incredibly effective, go to triageoil.com. It is, I've been using it for, I guess it's almost been a year now. It works great on cuts, burns, and just basic joint pain. You guys know I was putting it on my neck because I was in a car accident in 2013. My neck has never been the same since. I don't think it'll ever fully be the same, but I can move my neck around better than I ever could because of this pain oil. So triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com, and rarenaturalscbd.com. That's with an S, rarenaturalscbd.com. Are you looking for some CBD oil that you can ingest? I got you covered. This oil, it's perfect after a workout. It's perfect if you're just looking to get a little bit of sleeping aid, like it'll help you sleep. If you want to use it for that, it'll relax you. It helps with anxiety. It helps for me personally. If I feel a headache coming on, it's very helpful. I had some last night. I was feeling a little bit of tension, a little bit of tension, and I had some CBD in my seltzer water, and it made a huge difference. So you can go to rarenaturalscbd.com to stock up on that. And if you use the promo code Lucy at checkout, that's Lucy, Lucy, you get 30% off your order. How cool is that? So check it out now, rarenaturalscbd.com. So I'm incredibly excited about today's show. So we're going to be deviating a little bit from the normal format for today's show. And this is an episode I've been wanting to have for a while now. More and more in society these days, you hear the term mutual aid getting thrown about. And it's something that I myself am familiar with. I'm a little bit familiar with. I mean, I know that it's something that exists, but I certainly don't know all the details about it. But in our contemporary day and age, we're living in an era where all the veils have been taken off what our society really is here in the United States. The corporate coup that is our government, the banana republic that is our government, and just how brutal it really is to we the people. And folks are looking for a real solution, and people are more and more interested in this idea of mutual aid and kind of creating systems that are outside of general governed society. So but what does that mean really? And what are the ins and outs of that? What does that work really involve? And I've been looking for someone to talk about mutual aid for a little while now. I tweeted it out, and this gentleman was recommended to me, and we started a conversation, and I'm incredibly excited to learn from him today. So please welcome to the show, Red. He is with the Community Relief Corps up in North Seattle. Red, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's just start at the most basic. You heard my preamble there. So what really is? How would you kind of just explain to an outsider what is mutual aid exactly? What is it all about? What does it involve?
Mutual aid is the self-guided development of a community's economy, essentially. Mutual aid is neighbors helping neighbors. And we often explain mutual aid in contrast to charity. Whereas charity is money that comes from someone that's usually rich or a better, slightly better status than you. Mutual aid is a horizontal act. Mutual aid comes from neighbors to neighbors. It comes from the struggling to the struggling. You hear people make jokes about how poor people on the internet send the same $20 to each other back and forth. That's mutual aid. That's a joke about mutual aid. That's what poor people do. And it's often you talk to service workers or you talk to houseless people, and they'll tell you that working class people are the ones that give them their last $5. It's not rich people that give them their last $100. It's the server who just got off work and they split their tips with their fellow workers, and they're walking by and they see you and they give you a 5 or a 10 or a 15 or a 20 right off their stack. No questions asked. They don't ask what you're going to use it for. They don't care. And that's mutual aid. Mutual aid is just the community living for itself. They're not living for the corporate master. They're not living for the president. They're not living for the mayor. They're not living for the chief of police. They're living for themselves. They are self-directing their lives around what matters to them, which is usually filling their bellies, strengthening their bones, and educating themselves. And that's what people really care about. I tell people a lot that nobody wants to talk about policy on an empty stomach. And so that's what mutual aid is all about. Mutual aid is about getting us all fed, getting our bones strong, and getting our minds sharpened so that we can come into a civil sort of place and be copacetic with each other, to be good with each other and be kind to each other. And that's what the base hope is, right? Is you just want to live next to each other in peace.
Have you ever read Paulo
Freire?
Freire? Yeah.
Oh yes, extensively,
Because
yes.
that's pedagogy of the oppressed. Just really, if you had to just sum that book, which that's one of my favorite books. I love that book. It's a beautiful book. But
Yes.
if you had to sum it up in one sentence, it's basically just you can't learn if you're hungry.
That's
It's
right.
impossible. You
That's
just
correct.
can't do it.
Yeah, you have to put first things first.
Mm-hmm.
You have
But
to
I would say, responding to what you said, I would say that it goes a little bit beyond living for yourself, though, because it also sounds like you're living for each other too.
Well, no, that's a community living for itself,
Mm-hmm.
not individuals living for themselves, but a community self-directed for itself. And so we often find that our communities are serving two different causes. They're serving the people that exploit us, and they're serving ourselves. And so everything that's left over after our exploiters, we split up and share. And that's mutual aid. But the goal is to get away from that. The goal is through dialogue and service and humility and compassion for each other and with each other, and building this mutual dignity, that we can unite around what really matters to us, our mutual survival, our mutual satisfaction, our mutual dignity. These are the things that really matter to people. And we can't really move forward effectively if we're all hungry, tired, stressed out, overworked, overexploited, undercounted, underheard. All these things matter. People, and so it's mutual aid is the act of self-development of a community, not of people. It is the act of developed people initially. People that are politically and socially developed. They get it started, but ultimately the act of capital M mutual capital A aid is a self-directed people's economy, essentially, that takes care of themselves first.
I love that phrase, people's economy. That's that's right on. So describe some of the work that your group specifically does in the community. What does the Community Relief Corps do in North Seattle?
Okay, well, the Community Relief Corps came out of a public health effort that we were building for years here, a public health and safety effort, grassroots, of course, just a bunch of neighbors working with neighbors. And then when, of course, the pandemic hit, it was just an easy pivot for us from general public health to COVID public health. And so we started this Community Relief Corps because what we noticed in our community was that the nonprofits in the city, when they should have been tripling services, they were cutting them by 66%. Instead of tripling services so that we could get everybody into a service, they instead reflexively chose to punish the poor first instead of choosing to extend their hand to the poor, to those in poverty. And we noticed that immediately. And so we formed the Community Relief Corps immediately. In like the first week of the pandemic, we realized that the state was going to abandon us. We called it. We said, this is going to be at least an 18-month problem. This is not going to be something that's done in 3 months or 6 months. We knew, because we've been fighting the state for a long, long time. And I say fighting the state, and I mean it. I meant that. They don't like us, and we don't like them. But and we knew they were going to fail. Well, look around you. That's the answer. Look outside your door.
Mm-hmm.
Look out. That's why. Look outside your door. No explanation needed. That's why we don't like the state. That's why we don't like the bourgeois state. That's why we don't like the US state. And don't just look outside your door, but look outside your door to Mexico, to El Salvador, to Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam and Laos.
Mm-hmm.
Look outside your door. That's why we don't like the American state. Anyway, we're not talking about the American state here. What we're talking about is the flop of the American state. And not just the flop of the American state, but the intentional, once they realized that they could save themselves, they left us in the wind. And we knew that was going to happen. We knew that was going to happen because we're students of history. And we've been at this for a while. And so we said, this is going to take 18 months at least. And so we need to get out here immediately and start doing something. We knew that food services were going to get restricted. We knew the shelter services were going to get restricted. And so we focused our efforts on reinforcing people's access to makeshift shelter, even if it's not a house, because we don't have the power to do that, and we might not for a long time, to give them homes. We said we can at least give them tents. We can't solve their hunger problems, but at least we can solve their hunger crisis on a daily basis. And so we started doing sandwiches and snack packs, and it just grew from there. It just grew and grew and grew. The need grew, but as the need grew, our support grew with it as we developed our support. And it's been 6 months now, and we haven't missed a single service day. We serve 100. Well, right now we serve 150 meals a day. We went from 30 to 40 to 50 meals served in a day in 1 month. We're about to go up to 70 meals a day, I believe. And so the Community Relief Corps right now, we run a immediate need, no questions asked, no barrier, tent, tarp, and sleeping bag service. You can just basically see us on the street and be like, I need a sleeping bag, tent, or tarp, and we will get one to you. Someone will drive one to where you're at. We run a water table, which has already put out about 4,000 bottles of water this summer. We have about 2,500 left to distribute. We consistently deliver whole cases of water to 2 houseless encampments in our neighborhood. And so before I get any further, the CRC is a specific formation designed for our neighborhood specifically. We didn't design it to operate in the whole of Seattle. We designed it to operate in an 8 square block area in Lake City to serve the same people every single day. Our goal is not to spread ourselves thin, but to get deeper and deeper and deeper and serve and better serve the same people every day. So that's sort of the boundaries of it all. And that's why you might say, oh, that's only 50 sandwiches. It's only 50 snack packs. It's only 50 meals, but it's 50 people, the same 50 people every day, week after week, month after month, in a consistent act of justice, and not just random acts of kindness when we see people, but followed through consistent acts of justice, getting someone a tent, getting these 50 people tents, and then making sure they keep a tent forever. So they never have to go take a tent from someone else or steal a tent or ask for a tent. They can simply have a tent. If they need one, they can simply have one. No barriers, no money. We don't ask for $1 from these folks. We don't ask for anything. No pictures, no nothing. We don't no signed statements, none of that stuff. And so that's what the CRC is. And so we do a hot meal on Saturdays every single week. We do 50 hot meals with survival gear, with drinks, with hot coffee, with fresh fruit as often as we can get it. We do 2 other service days of general outreach where we go directly to camps and set up aid stations, where we have street medics and trained nurses come and try to give people triage and try to get them to the hospital and give them treatment for their flesh wounds and things like that, prevent infections. We have, let's see what else. Many programs. We have run so many programs. It's hard for me to go through them all. But we have about 10 plus programs that we run right now, including a needle exchange program and others. And morale support. And my chairwoman's yelling at me right now, different things that we do. But the list can go on and on. We do a lot of things. We're continually developing new projects. Right now, I'm developing a juice lodge. Oh, we do a soap and hand sanitizer. We have a in-house no brand called People's Basics. And soap and sanitizer companies give us sanitizer and soap, and we package that soap without brands, just simple basic soap and sanitizer, and give that to people just straight up. And we put that out every week. But I'm right now developing a juice manufacturing, like to replace Capri Suns, because our folks love fruit juice. I love fruit juice. Who doesn't love fruit juice?
Who doesn't love fruit juice?
Yeah. So one of the programs we're developing right now is a 50 servings a day of homemade like Capri Sun replacer. It's cheaper and better quality, and made by our community members. So what we're always trying to do is get away from this parasitic society. We're constantly, through mutual aid, trying to build these lasting alternatives, these replacement services to the state.
So how do you, I mean, how do, and you don't have to go into like the full detail because there's a lot going on here, but like, what are some of the, ins and outs of how you make that happen on a daily basis? Like where do you get the food from typically? How do you, orchestrate that? How do you choose locations?
That's something that y'all have to go through. I can't answer. That's not a question that I can helpfully answer for you, honestly.
Okay.
It very much depends on where you live and the work that you do, and who you're doing it for. If you're serving students, if you're a student organizing around student needs, I have no way to help you with that because I don't do that. It's all very particular. We focus specifically on houseless people mostly. And if you're doing tenant organizing is completely different than houseless organizing. And so I can't answer that question, but there is a question I can answer. I can tell you how to think about this work. Okay. Whether or not I can tell you how to specifically do the work in your neighborhood, I can tell you how to begin to think about this work in a way that will help you not step on your neighbor's toes, and will help you serve your community in a way that's actually helpful and not a conquering sort of way. If you're interested in that, I can answer that question. Yeah, but I can't, nothing that I say about my formation is going to help you in your formation where you're at. So that's my point. But how to think about the work is you have to go in as a student. So we didn't go into houseless camps and start telling them what to do and what was good for them. We didn't go in and say, here's what you need, here's what we're giving you. We went in humbly as students. I've been houseless before. I'm married and we've been houseless together before. But we're not houseless now. And so the priority is, regardless of your personal experience, you go in as a first-time learner always to a new community. And you go in and you learn. And we just spent years just humbly walking in and seeing people on the street. Before we had any programs, before we did anything organized wise, it was just me and my wife. We had socks or sandwiches or cigarettes. We were on our way to our 12-hour shift at work or on our way home or on the weekends. And we'd see people in our neighborhood and we'd say, hey, you need a pair of socks. Hey, you need or they'd ask us, hey, you got a cigarette? And we'd say, yeah, sure, I've got a cigarette. Hey, do you happen to need a pair of socks? Do you happen to need a peanut butter sandwich or something like that? And we just did that forever and ever and ever for what seemed like forever, years, honestly, years, before we were ever organized enough, before anybody ever trusted us, before they ever gave us a mandate to do anything. We just existed alongside them humbly for months and months on end and just gave what we could and had these very crucial dialogues every day and started to learn their themes and their points of view and learn their history and learn their their ideas about the world and their hopes for what they hope to accomplish and how they want to move forward in the world and how they feel about things. And by engaging in that dialogue, our chairwoman leads this process in the streets. This is not what I do. This is what a whole other branch of our work does. I'm a logistics guy and a communications guy. They do the mass work and the mutual aid, but they go down there and they just spend time with people as human beings, just sitting with them and working with them at whatever it is, cleaning up their camp, whatever it is they need help with. They just go down there and do it. They don't try to like push anything on anybody. We never went down there as a group at first. We just went down there as individuals and just showed that we gave a shit.
Yeah, I mean, isn't
And
that
so,
isn't that kind of how human history naturally evolved in the first place? Like didn't at some point in
but
time, long
that's,
before you and I were alive, that we came down from the trees and decided, hey, we're better off together than alone. What do we need? Let's figure
and
this out.
and at some point, some pigs decided that that wasn't a good way to live for them. That living off the commons together in peace was not good for them. So they closed the commons and pushed us all into the cities and made manufacturing and forced us into factories and made us proletarians. They
Mhm.
isolated us and atomized us and took us away from our collective power on purpose. And we see unions are a collective proletarian response to this enclosure and this proletization of us, this atomization of us, this specialization of us, this putting us on a factory floor where we just hammer one piece into a thing, or we just do one piece of a larger puzzle of a service organization. They take us away from the solidarity and the shared dignity that gives us power. And we have to unlearn that. We have to go back to basics. We have to
Yeah.
literally go through a social struggle collectively and learn to live together again before we can do anything meaningful as a collective. We have to learn not to sexually assault each other. We have to learn to feed each other unconditionally. We have to learn to forgive and fight alongside each other. We have to learn to build a real sense of healing, and then we can move on to justice. And these things are not negotiable.
Yeah. I
These
mean,
things are
well,
not.
sure. I mean, they take you away from your labor too when you
No, they
really break
don't.
it down. I think
No.
they do because you don't see the benefits of your labor. The people exploiting you do.
Oh yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Yes, I agree with you. I misheard what you said, or misunderstood what you said. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it becomes alienated labor. It's not labor that you feel personally compelled to do because you're invested in the process. It's labor that you're compelled to do because you need something else badly. Your
Mhm.
family needs medication. You need a place to live. You just want to sleep not in the rain, and they've taken this ability for us to simply exist without their coercive force. And part of mutual aid is getting us off the floor. It gets people off the floor, gets their belly full and their bones healed and their body strong so that they can make good decisions about their lives.
So, I know you don't wanna spend a ton of time talking about yourself, but I am curious, like, what kind of led you, to this work? What led you to wanting to participate in this way? We've all been brought up in a society where, any type of collective thinking is very much frowned upon unless it's kind of the societally approved collective thinking. It's okay if it's in a church or a political party, but other forms of collective thinking are so frowned upon. How did you find your way to this type of work?
Uh, I didn't find my way. Society forced me into this work through poverty. I grew up in extreme poverty inside the United States. There's pockets of extreme poverty in the United States, and there's many people who are nodding their head right now, thinking, "Yeah, I'm from Appalachia, or I'm from this or there, or I'm from the South. I'm from some place, and I grew up in abject poverty." And I grew up in one of those places. Um,
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a small military industrial town called Bremerton, Washington,
Okay.
just a few miles from here. It
Yeah,
was
you got
when
to
I grew
hop
up.
a ferry, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You take a ferry over there. When I grew up there, it was very, very poor. And there was definitely an above class and an underclass in our town, and that's what got me started. It's just the day that I noticed that there's families that weren't in poverty. Um, and I got well, and I got started in some bad stuff. I got started in gangs and whatnot early. That was my form of class warfare early on. Um, it was like an inchoate way to attack against a world that I felt like was attacking me. And then later on, I found Youth Crew, which is like hardcore punk. And this was at the end of the Nazis' attempt to take over the punk scene in like the mid 90s. It was like sort of the end. And I got involved in Youth Crew, and we beat Nazis up for a long time. And did a lot of street fighting and stuff like that, and got really hurt. I got a lot of teeth kicked out. I got stabbed a couple times. It was brutal work, but I was a political enforcer for a long time, and I learned I learned the limitations of physical struggle through that. I Through all that struggle, I ended with a broken body and harmed psyche and a life that was at rock bottom. And I said, man, something's got to change, right? There's got to be a better way than this. And uh, and so my wife and I was newly married at the time. We just Occupy happened, and these different things happened, and we just propelled. It just moved us in this new trajectory, and we started just doing mutual aid. We started building these. Well, at first we started this illegalist mutual aid project that ended badly, and it's sort of this political evolution. And I really came from like crime and violence in my background, and had to work my way out of that. And we self-educated and read and this and that, and struggled and read and struggled and read. And we really did do 10 years in the desert, where we were surrounded by a bunch of people that were committed to losing, and we didn't want to lose anymore. And so we kind of left them behind and just said, we're going to build our own thing.
Well,
And
go into a little detail on that. Like, what do you mean committed to losing? And do you mean like literally y'all were out in the desert, like
no,
physically?
not literally in the desert, not literally in the desert. It's a
I
figure
don't
of
know.
speech.
I
Um,
got
um, Committed to losing, what I mean is they were not committed to self-critique. They were not committed to looking at the things that we were doing and saying, are these really working for the people that they're supposed to work for? Are we moving forward, moving our goals forward, or are we simply treading water? And a lot of the people that we were around were really committed to sort of this dogmatic idea of political change. And we said, no, that's not for us. We got to try something new. And we literally spent 8 years struggling, building our own homegrown theory, and really just humbly putting our faces into the work together with just a couple other people, and trying to find the most effective route forward. And as we were struggling, we were self-educating. We were reading and self-educating and brutally critiquing ourselves, brutally critiquing our work, continually asking ourselves, like, is this serving the community? Is this serving our goals? Is this driving our political movement forward? And we came to this idea that we have to go back to base building. We have to go back to the old fashioned putting first things first, feeding people, strengthening their bones, building a coherent political base that matters. People that are tactically and strategically in lockstep, people that share political ideas, not just political flags like a Republican or a Democrat, but we have these strong political beliefs beyond simply ideology or simply voting, but like these beliefs about how we're going to move forward together collectively. And mutual aid is that first step. Mutual aid is that step towards building that coherent political base that can actually build working class power by working together like like we're supposed to. And it all sounds really simple and self-explanatory, right? And my teachings are simple, but why has nobody put them to use successfully? That's the question. And so yes, they're simple, but clearly we're not doing them right. The corny and the simple and the commonplace, if those basics are not met, we need to return to them. And we need to continue returning to those basic things until people are satisfied. And you will know when people are satisfied because they go, "Thank you, I'm satisfied." We hear it every day. We hear
They
it every
tell you.
day. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's why I can't, even during these times, none of us feel stressed out about these times because we're actively working in a struggle with people that are seeing a benefit from our work, and we're seeing a benefit from our work, and we are supporting each other. We're in harmony with each other and in harmony with our community. And when you achieve this sort of stasis, this sort of harmony, um, it's really hard to be sad, because we're out here every day seeing people surviving in a real way, and not just surviving, but witnessing our labor, saying, you know, not just like, this is great food, but like, this, like, if it wasn't for y'all, we wouldn't eat for days at a
Yeah.
time. Like, if it wasn't for y'all, I wouldn't have a tent. If it wasn't for y'all, I'd have caught a case. If it wasn't for,
Yeah.
these are people witnessing our labor, and it's hard to be sad when you hear shit like that on a day-to-day basis. Um, and so that's what we're doing, is we're building real material politics where we live, not ideology. We're not just getting people to agree, yes, this is good or this is bad, but getting people to take the next step and get self-involved in the process.
Well, and that is so incredibly powerful because it's I mean, how amazing does it feel when you just see someone's hunger get quenched. You
Yeah,
just see their hunger is satisfied. Their housing need is met or met as best as it can be with the resources available. I mean that's just absolutely incredible.
yeah, and we don't go down there and march step down there and say Marxist Leninism or anarchism or Maoism or whatever. We don't go down there and do that. We go down there and we serve humbly. We serve the people every single day, and when they get their needs met, when their belly is full and their bones are strong, and they feel supported and they feel like you share a level of dignity with them, they will come to you and they will say, "Why the hell do you do this every day? What makes you come out here and do this for me?" And it's in that moment where you can be honest with people. It's in that moment where you could say, "I do this because I'm a communist. I do this because I'm an anarchist. I do this because I am a humanist. I do this because I love people. I do this because," whatever your reason is, it doesn't matter very much. You know what I mean? To get you started, as long as you get out there and start doing the work in a way that has a good principles, in a way that isn't seeking to conquer, but seeking to enable, in a way that isn't seeking to simply enable, but to connect and to develop. Like, you need to be continuously trying to move in this to the next level of connectedness. So once you get people fed and they have enough, you got to get people to know when they have enough, so that when you give them extra, they give it to their neighbor, right? And
I
then
absolutely.
you make this interconnected web, this ecology. So when you first start doing mutual aid, you're not doing mutual aid yet. You're simply helping one person. But it's the continued work of justice that builds this mutual aid. It's these continued acts of consistent solidarity that makes someone able to embrace this system. But you can't not be reliant on the random acts of kindness. It can't be out of kindness. And you have to come into this work with a sense of justice, while also knowing that justice can't be achieved on land that's been stolen from someone, and then those people have been wiped out or nearly wiped out and removed from their land. So there is, um, until we until we acknowledge and move forward on land back issues, on indigenous people's problems with the American state, we can't really get true justice in this country. And it's same with uh, uh, Black Americans. Without justice for these folks, for the labor they've put in through generations and the stolen lives, we can't get a true capital J justice in this country. It's impossible. But on an individual level, on an individual survival level, on an individual needs level, we can meet a modicum, a slice of justice in our lives. And that slice of justice is a crack in the door towards a new reality for all of us.
Are you
So we can,
listening, Donald Trump? You got it wrong.
ah,
Anarchists don't throw soup. Anarchists serve soup.
we do
Ask my
both.
buddy Red.
No, we do both, and we do them both unapologetically. No, we do them both. I don't give a shit what Donald Trump
I was
says.
just
We
trying
do
to make you
both.
laugh.
I know, but no, seriously, we do both. We fight and we defend. We serve the people, and sometimes serving the people, serving your neighbors is defending them. And I'll never throw the community defenders under the bus. I have much love to the people that go out and put their bodies on the line. I was one of those folks once. I got a busted knee now. I'm a liability on the front lines, but that's where my heart lies. My heart lies with the fighters. And I'll never hear a bad word about the young people, old people, whatever, that choose to go out there and get their asses kicked for a good cause. But yeah, so that's the spirit. You got to come into it as a learner. You have to come into it not as a conqueror, but as a collaborator. You have to come into it with a sense of continuity. You have to come into it with speaking of continuity, real quick, you first timers that are coming into this, don't come in thinking you know everything. There's people that have been doing this for their entire lives, and they have organizations and formations built, and they know what they're doing. So come in and learn from those people. That being said, all of us are doing something wrong. So there's room for everybody. All of us have room for critique. And so by getting involved with us, you can learn what we're not doing. You can learn what we're not doing correctly, and you can learn not the blind spots, that's ableist, but you can learn where we're not looking and where we're not paying attention, so that you can build that as your niche and be useful to your community. So you got to come in and learn from the people that have been doing the work in your community. I guarantee whatever you're concerned about in your community that you just learned about yesterday, somebody learned about it 10 years ago, and they've been building the mechanisms to address this justice or this injustice for their entire lives. And you need to go to them and be humble and speak to them. And even if you think they're doing it wrong, or they're not doing it enough, or they're doing it in the wrong direction, you should take an honest effort to try and learn why it is they do that way, how it is they came to be that way, so that you can better create an analysis for your own work. There's 3 treasures that I tell all organizers to treasure, that you can never ever live without. And as long as you have these 3 treasures, you have enough to keep moving forward. And that's compassion, frugality, and humility. And so real quick, we're already almost 40 minutes into this. And I really want to make sure people go away with this. Frugality means saying no 100 times so that you can give a good yes.
Okay.
Frugality means not giving your whole self so that you can give all that's extra tomorrow. Frugality doesn't mean being cheap. It doesn't mean, frugality doesn't mean not helping. Frugality means not giving so much of yourself away that you are destroyed. Frugality means you as an organizer, you as a whatever it is you consider yourself to be, have to be preserved also. We're not in this business to martyr ourselves. We're not in this business to become a saint. We're in this business to win, right? We're in this work to fight and to preserve, to live together in harmony and live by each other's joy, and fight tomorrow. And so sometimes you have to say, I don't have that. Sometimes you have to say, I don't have the resources for that. I just can't provide that. I will ask around and maybe I can organize it, but I don't have that. So frugality, first of all, you have to preserve yourself. Humility, which means work from below, never to lead. If you want to lead, you should be below. They say there can't be a lotus without mud. And so if you want to grow something beautiful, you have to start in the mud, because the mud is where the nutrients is at, right? So you have to start in the low places. That's where the good work is. Find the lowest place in your community and go there, and that's where your work begins. Be humble. Root yourself in the mud so that you can grow lotuses. You'll never grow a flower without dirt, and you'll never make a garden without getting your hands dirty. And so, you have to get in the mud. So that humility, you're never above doing the work. You're never above handing out a sandwich. You're never above buying a pack of smokes to give out to people who need one. You're never above sweeping a floor or you're never above any of this stuff. It doesn't matter if you're a chief strategist or a communications officer or a political officer in a formation or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Humility leads the way. And a formation and an individual that can remain humble can lead. And then, of course, compassion. You need compassion not only to, be humble and to be frugal. You have to know yourself and understand yourself to do those things. But in order to defeat our enemies, we have to fight the full enemy. And we can't know our enemies without compassion. And so you need compassion. When you turn your enemy into a stereotype or a 2D model, you've reduced your ability to analyze your enemy and defeat them effectively. When you make police simply one thing or another and not analyzed as through material consequences, you end up with a bad analysis. If you think about police as individuals and not as a system, you don't get to the root critique of policing. So you have to have compassion, and compassion means having compassion for yourself and having compassion for others, and to a limited sense, having a compassion for your enemy, at least so much that you can get to know them well enough to analyze them and defeat them. And so those are the three treasures that, as long as you have those, you have everything you need to move forward in class struggle and win. But you have to remain humble, frugal, and compassionate.
So now, like, mutual aid is kind of, you're hearing that more and more in the ethers, maybe than ever before, at least
Mm-hmm.
in recent history. Do you think there's ever the possibility that something like this could be achieved nationwide, where people are cooperating and kind of an alternative system could be built that's exempt from, what the state has done?
Exempt? Absolutely not.
Okay.
No, that's absolutely impossible.
Mm-hmm.
You'll never do a good thing in this country and not get marked for destruction. At this point, no, it's not possible. There's a reason why we do things the way that we do them, which is in a distributed model. That's sort of like a federated model, is because these projects mark you for destruction. Unfortunately, as soon as you deviate from the democratic Republican notions of civic duty, so essentially, once you start moving into mutual aid and mass work and away from the nonprofit model of existence, away from channeling everything and all your money and energy towards reproducing the system, you are marked for destruction, unfortunately. Literally no good deed goes unpunished in the United States. So we don't break windows. We don't do anything like that. We're not, you know what I mean? We've been not in the streets for a long time, as far as like marches and stuff and like that is concerned. We don't go anywhere near the uprisings. We haven't for a long, long time. We've been in the back line for a long time, just doing support, and we still get heavily policed. The police have forced their way into our programs physically before. The police have tried to do controlled buys for drugs on us in public before, during programs, while we're serving food. Yeah. The police have gone to our liberal supporters and our left liberal supporters to their homes and spread lies and propaganda about us to try and cut us off from our support. It's called counterinsurgency, and they view us as the enemy. As soon as you begin to work for yourself and not for the system, you are marked as the enemy.
Sure.
And it doesn't matter what you call yourself. It doesn't matter. There's a story I tell from back in the day about a union organizer, and he was an organizer for the CIO before it became the AFL-CIO. His name was Walter Reuther.
Okay.
And he was the head of the CIO. And at the time, the CIO was led by red communists. And the government urged him and urged him and urged him to purge the communists from the CIO. And he refused to do so because he stood in solidarity with the working class people. And eventually they shot at him through his living room window. And they shot him in the jaw while his family was home through his living room window. And then he went on to purge 11 million communists from the rolls of the unions and effectively destroyed the labor unions in the US. And we're living with the ramifications of Walter Reuther's decision to this day. Later on, the AFL-CIO would merge and become one thing, and now we call them the AFL-CIA for their support of overseas regime change operations. And they became an apparatus of the state. And this is part of why labor suffers. And so he was not a red. He was not a red communist. He was a liberal. He was a liberal who believed in the rights of working class people as stated by the American system. And they shot him through his window. And then check it out. Afterwards, they killed him in a plane crash on purpose. They rigged his plane to crash, and he died that way after he purged 11 million Reds from the CIO list. All the people that are driving the American Union movement forward, he purged all those 11 million people, and they still killed him. And they will. And then another international one is Allende. Allende was not a red communist. He was elected. He was a social democrat. He was not a Marxist. He was a peaceful, loving guy who was democratically elected, and they killed his ass. And they will kill you if you are successful and effective. And that's the danger of this work. And that's why so many people are incentivized to simply go about their business and keep plugging the voter rolls and keep running the usual hamster wheel. It's dangerous out here. Once again, it doesn't matter. You don't have to call yourself a communist. If you make an effective alternative to the liberal, to the neoliberal system, they will destroy you. Period. Another example that I use, and this is a weird example, so stick with me here, is Saddam Hussein. Not a good guy, not a Saddam Hussein apologist, right? He was a CIA operative. He got his job shooting the social democratic leader of Iraq, failing, and then had to flee. But then he made his bones gassing the Kurds and bloodily murdering the leftist sections and the communist and socialist sections of the Ba'athist Party on behalf of the US government. And when he was placed in charge of the Iraqi state, he began to nationalize things for the Iraqi people. And I'm not saying he's a socialist or a communist. Bad people do occasional good things. But what I'm saying is that he started to look out for Iraqi people instead of being a servant to the neoliberal system. And they killed him. And they arranged for his murder. They got rid of him immediately. It doesn't matter who you are or what you're doing. If you make an effective alternative to their neoliberal agenda, they will murder you. And it doesn't matter if it's a Democrat in power or a Republican. They will come, they see, and murder you. So it doesn't matter.
And I look at you, and you're not a cynical guy. So, or at least I don't think you are. I mean, I've just based on this interview. You seem like a really hopeful guy, and you're doing amazing things. Where do you get that hope from?
My comrades. My comrades work every single day to improve their thinking, to improve their work, to improve the way they treat each other. One second.
All right. No. Take your time. Take your time.
I'm surrounded by some of the most powerful, motivated people. That's how I stay positive. I see 21-year-olds actively engaged with revolutionary texts, going out in the streets, serving the community unceasingly, unquestioningly, giving their entire lives to what we do. They unreservedly join their communities in their struggles and in their celebrations. I couldn't even though I know that I'm doomed for destruction, I know that one day I will be arrested or destroyed. That's a fact. I rest assured knowing that I'm immortal, because there's 100 little kids from 19 to 21 that have learned everything they can from me. I can't be destroyed at this point. You'd have to wring me out of my entire community at this point. You'd have to come in with the National Guard and literally arrest everybody and wring me out of their minds and hearts. They've learned the methodology. They've learned the principles. They've learned to fight with passion and integrity and principle. And if I left today, if I decided to leave my formation today and leave all these kids to their good work, they would be fine without me. That's why I don't worry, because I've spent months and months and months and years and years and years training a new generation of fighters to do what I do way better than I do it, and they're already doing it better than me every single day. Every single day of my life, I watch these young people get stronger and more powerful and more certain and believe in themselves more and believe in each other more, and they have a stronger sense of shared dignity among themselves than we did when we started already. I'm 38. You know, they're already more powerful than we are now after 20 years of struggle. And I can't help but be hopeful. I know, we know what's in store for us, and that's neither here nor there. We're redundant now. What we do has been taught, and it's beautiful. We've made an impact that can't be taken away. Even if you take us away, you can put me in solitary for the rest of my life, and the work that I've done will not be diminished one bit, not one single solitary ounce. I've already taught people everything I have to teach, and so is my chairwoman. We've taught everything that there is to teach people. Now I'm preaching you folks, and that's gravy on top. But the victory for me has already been won. My victories have already been harvested, and so I'm old and redundant, and I'll happily go to my cell or to my grave knowing my job is done. So that's how I stay positive, because I see the world changing in front of me actively. How could you be cynical? How could you be? And so, though I know my end is bad, and I know most of our leadership will end badly, it's not, we don't that's not ever in our thoughts, because we're secure in our work. The work that we do is good, and it's secure, and you can't undo it. Until the material conditions that create people like us are solved, there'll always be someone like me out here looking to solve the problems. And so all I have to do is continue to find those people and continue to give them direction and guidance. And today it's 100, and tomorrow it'll be 200, and the next day it'll be 500, and then there'll be 1,000 21-year-olds out here ready to bump heads. And every single one of those will be educated, and they'll be principled, and they'll be serving the people every day, whether they're in the streets fighting, or they're with their families in the neighborhood, or they're just doing something to get by. Those people will be in their communities using their extra time to move this political movement forward. And there's nothing anyone can do to take that away at this point. There's not a military that can defeat that. There's not a police force that can arrest that. It's not destroyable. The people's movement is undefeatable, period.
That's a hell of an answer. Thank you.
You bet.
So I know that, you mentioned on Twitter there were certain things you really wanted to make sure you got to say in this interview. So in closing, I want to just turn it over to you. Is there anything else you want to leave people with?
Yeah. Please, I'm begging you. Be humble. Be students. Be a sapling. Go into communities and serve the people. Don't go in to serve yourself. Don't go to serve any alternative motive or ulterior motive. Go in as a human being with other human beings. Don't go in to try to share your politics or get people to vote a certain way. Don't go in to talk about policy, please. You're never going to make headway. If you really honestly want to make a difference in people's lives, go and make a material difference. And when the time is right for political struggle together, that time will be correct. And you can make those moves. But right now, people need help. People just need hands. They need hearts and they need bread. They need people keeping them in their homes. They need people keeping them in their shelter. They need people's support. They don't need lectures. They don't need judgment. They don't need your leftover isms from whatever class you came from. They don't need any of that bullshit. They don't really even need you. They need your stuff. They need your solidarity. They need you to get out in the street and make their lives just that much easier. But they need you to do it in a way that doesn't walk all over them and that takes their viewpoint into account. And that means starting small and starting humble and going day by day and doing the honest, humble labor. And once again, your three basic treasures: compassion, humility, and frugality. You got to preserve yourself, but you have to serve humbly and you have to serve with compassion. And if you listen to what I'm saying and you keep these things to heart and you make them the central part of your struggle, your mutual aid will go great. Respect the wisdom of the people who are here first, and just do and find where nobody's doing the work and do that work.
So where can people go to learn more about you or to help out or even potentially get involved? Where can people go to learn more?
If you want to learn more, you could follow me. I'm IronProle on Twitter, IronProle. If you're listening to this right now, you've probably already seen the promo and stuff. I was linked on Twitter and stuff for Ron's page. He'll probably put it in the show notes too, I'll bet you.
Yes,
but if you're in Northeast Seattle or North Seattle in general, find the Coho Logistics Collective. They're a new young organization. Free Food U District in the U District is looking for volunteers in the North End. And if you're a nurse or a nursing student or a medical person, get in touch with Red Cedar Community Network in Monroe. Those are pretty good leads in North Seattle if you really want to get involved locally. Unfortunately, I can't really make any recommendations for places outside North Seattle because we're just a very hyper local sort of network. So we don't do a lot of national work or anything like that. We don't have any like franchises or like branches or anything like that. We really are still building our model here locally. So I think that's it. I think that's all I got.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it. I appreciate you sharing this world with everybody. It's been very, very educational, and thank you so much for doing what you do. I think it's obviously infinitely important, and you're making a huge difference. So thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for sharing it. And please check it out on Twitter, IronProle. Again, that's IronProle. Of course, that Twitter handle will be in all the notes and clips from today's show as well. And yeah.
Thank you, Ron. I really appreciate you, boss.
Thank you very so much. Thank you very so much. I just said that. Thanks a lot, Red. Best wishes to you, man.
You as well.
I appreciate it. Peace. All right. That was awesome. That was fantastic. That was powerful, and I learned a lot. Let me go through a couple super chats here. A Mars, this is a fantastic interview. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, A Mars. I appreciate that so much. Red's fantastic. Please do follow the Twitter account IronProle, IronProle, and learn more about that and find the organizations. If you're up in Seattle, he is connected to a lot of the organizations doing mutual aid work. So please do not hesitate to get in touch. And of course, we will make sure that Twitter handle is in all of the show notes from today. Christopher Walker, what's up, buddy? I hope you're well. Scary and sad that here in Neolib, California, our politicians are kicking down the road on the rent crisis. They are not canceling rent, which is what we need. Yeah, that is sad. They are kicking it down the road is accurate. That is accurate to what's going on. I mean, at least people aren't going to get kicked out of their homes immediately. At least not due to COVID. There's other ways people could still get kicked out of their home. It's not a complete moratorium, but for the most part, people won't get kicked out of their homes immediately, but but yeah, they need to cancel rent. They really do. Thank you, A. Mars. Thank you, Christopher Walker. Some show notes. So tomorrow, a short video drops. You guys know that Thursday's been the short day. So I got another short video that's coming. I'm excited about it. That drops tomorrow. Regular Get Your News On with Ron full streams will be back on Monday. Or wait, no, Monday's Labor Day. All right, we'll definitely be back on Tuesday, and we're gonna have a climate change episode. But Monday's a maybe. You know what? I don't know if I'm gonna go live Monday because it is Labor Day. I know some people might have some long weekend plans, but if I do go live, it'll probably be a solo show. And maybe we'll just do like a chat type thing. We'll just do a live AMA chat type thing. That might be fun. That might be cool. So keep an eye. Follow me on Twitter, at Ron Placone on Twitter. You know the drill. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel, which is just, oh, I did it wrong. Yeah, I'm getting used to my new screen. Can you tell? Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. And, make sure you ring the bell so you get notified. And I'll just update you there. And, folks, please follow Red on Twitter. Again, it is at IronProle, IronProle. He is doing amazing and essential work. And I really, really want to thank him once again for coming on this show and sharing his world with us. So, and thank you guys for tuning in for it. In the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Peace.